Richard Dawkins teaches evolution to a group of students. Now, this video is over a decade old, and the purpose of my video analyzing Mr. Dawkins' statements in this video is not to debate evolution or to attack anything of that kind. Rather, I'm going to look at a specific section of the video in which Mr. Dawkins informs these students that he has uncovered the meaning of life. And I'm going to talk about an essential flaw that many atheists have in their worldview when addressing the question of God, the question of beginnings, the question of existence, of being, and how their particular field of expertise can lead to their gross misjudgments and their frankly embarrassing errors. So I'm going to let this play, and then I'm going to make a few comments. Here, that suffices. So if you want to watch the entire video, I encourage you to do so. I'm going to put a link to it in the description of this video, so take a look at that. It is an older video, but I like to return to it because it's funny. It's funny because of his answers when you really think about what he's saying, and I'm going to address that in a moment. It's also haphazardly shot. So one of the comments that made me laugh was that it appears that the man recording this was on a unicycle or on drugs or both. A lot of intense close-ups, a lot of panning in and out. So watch, view at your own discretion. You might want to take some kind of I don't know, some kind of medication for motion sickness or something before you watch the video. But essentially, let's address that part there with Richard Dawkins saying that no one knew what was special about Earth. So prior to the clip that I played, he talks about how there are so many planets in our galaxy and in the universe, and the vast majority, and perhaps all of them, save ours, are dry and covered with rock, and there may be no life on them. And what's different about our planet? And he says that nobody knew until Charles Darwin came along, and Charles Darwin figured it all out. And now we know beyond any doubt that Charles Darwin is correct, and we know the meaning of life. So let me unpack a few things. There is so much wrong with that statement and with Richard Dawkins' worldview in general. It is actually laughable. Now, Richard Dawkins is very intelligent. He's a very capable biologist. He's very intelligent in that field. His quintessential problem is that he tries to turn everything into a matter of biology. I could reference another famous atheist, not one of the so-called new atheists, which are now gone, but another one that's come along is Lawrence Krauss. He is a theoretical physicist, also very intelligent. His IQ, I'm sure, outstrips mine by many points. But the problem with Lawrence Krauss is he tries to turn everything into a question of physics. And both these men and most atheists, I will not say all because I know there are some that do, but most atheists either flat out don't understand philosophy or they want to disregard philosophy and say that it has no importance. It's something that's outdated or medieval, and what do we care about philosophy? So they try to take the questions about all of being and existence and boil it down to either physics or biology or something like that. Now, why would they do that? Of course, they do that because that's what they're comfortable with. And the ironic thing is, these are the same people that very often tell us that one of the problems with the religion is that it has answers that you're not allowed to question. It's ironic because these same people have answers that you're not allowed to question. As you hear Mr. Dawkins say, Darwin got it all right, and you're not allowed to question that. But let's leave Darwin aside. Mr. Dawkins tells these students that that's the meaning of life. Not Dawkins, Darwin's figured out that life began on this planet. It's evolved over billions of years, and now we have life, and that's the meaning of life. This is, frankly, a silly statement. It gives us nothing about existence itself or being. It does not answer any existential question for mankind, which is why ultimately people like Dawkins might give you something like a contact high from his intellect, and it's something rebellious and novel to get into, but most people don't stick with it. They don't stick with atheism, or if they do stick with atheism, they do not stick with Mr. Dawkins' style of atheism, this reductionist, atomistic, materialist version of atheism in which everything can be reduced to biology. So, some big problems there, of course. It tells us nothing about meaning, it assumes everything is material. And the biggest flaw from a scientific standpoint is it tells us nothing about the immediate causes of life. How did life begin in the first place? You could say, well, it just happened to happen on this planet, and it's probably going to go extinct someday, which is Mr. Dawkins seems to think. But it tells us nothing about the beginning of life. And they can't tell us about the beginning of life because they have no answers. Some pretend to, there's theories. None of the theories have worked. They don't tell us about origins. Let's talk about Lawrence Krauss for a moment, and then I'll close because I was recently reading something from him. He makes the same mistakes, reduces everything to his field of science. Lawrence Krauss famously wrote that everything came from nothing, or at least something very small. And he's aware that philosophers and theologians and just people with common sense have questioned that statement and have made fun of that statement and have commented on how ridiculous that statement is. Because if you have nothing, you can't have something very small. Lawrence Krauss makes the mistake of presuming that nothing is a physical quantity. Why? Because he's taken materialism for granted. So even nothing has to have physicality to it because you have to get something from nothing, and something is physical, and all of something is physical. So therefore, nothing must be physical. Lawrence Krauss addresses those who raise the philosophical questions about first causes and use those proofs for the existence of God, which he demonstrates that he does not understand because he asks the errant, juvenile question, if God is the cause, then what caused God? Again, I've done other videos on the proofs for God. They're available online, but it's a silly question. Ultimately, when we're talking about a non-contingent, necessarily existing, perfect act of subsistent being, etc., etc., nothing is the cause of that which is the cause of all. And so, whether you are an atheist or a theist or wherever you fall at on the spectrum, we come to the point at which we must say that there has to be a cause. The universe, even if it is eternally in the past, even if it is somehow eternal, would still require a cause because it is contingent. And a contingent thing cannot explain its own existence. That's the principle of sufficient reason. So I think that's enough there. I think I've labored upon that point enough, but I came across this clip again. I hadn't seen it in a few years, and I like to watch that because it kind of makes me laugh. By the way, take a look at the whole video because he comes in, it's kind of awkward. He says, "Good morning," and then right away he goes into the beginning. Life began 2 billion years ago. It's that with the very manic camera action, it's a golden video. It's a gem. And so I wanted to raise those problems and talk about Mr. Dawkins and Mr. Krauss and why they reduce everything to the material because they don't understand and they're not willing to question anything beyond that.